Good morning everyone and welcome again to our third video in our series of HR Essentials Managing Employees, All Employers Need to Know. Welcome again Paulette. And
thank you.
Today we've got a bit of a story that we're going to talk about. So this is all about recruitment and selection, the raw deal when finding your stars. So I've got an interesting story that I'd like to share with you, and I'm sure there are people out there that have gone through similar circumstances when trying to find an employee. So I'll share with you a story, if that's okay this morning.
Sure.
Awesome. Okay, so essentially we were looking for a new employee. We'd written a position description, so we'd done all the right things, all the preparation work. We knew exactly who we were looking for, and it was a matter of trying to advertise for this person now. And we were approached by a recruitment company, fairly well-known recruitment company, and they put forward some candidates to us. So we interviewed these candidates ourselves, and interviewing is not one of my best things that I know how to do. It's not something that I'm great at, but we gave it a go. Okay. And I guess like most small business owners, it's you're good at doing your business. You're not necessarily great at HR and employing people. So we've interviewed these candidates, and we found one that we thought fitted the bill. And because the recruitment company had already done all this testing and had said that this person was capable of fulfilling the role that we required, I didn't do any further testing on this person. Now, a couple of months in, I'm thinking, okay, this is all right. And 6 months down the track, this person wasn't who they said they were. They were not capable of performing the role in any way, shape or form. And then we got to that point where we were over the 6 month mark and we were stuck with this person. So I guess my question is, having been through that experience, which was a bit of a disaster, and also having to pay the recruitment company thousands and thousands of dollars, $12,000 in fact, to recruit this person, exactly. Yeah. So I'd like to ask the question, how could I have prevented that? How could I have actually found the right person for the role and not spend all those thousands of dollars in the meantime?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not a story that I haven't heard before. There are a lot of recruiters out there, and they say they're doing certain things and they don't. But there are recruiters that do those things as well. So it's a matter of finding the right ones. And if you are going to use a recruiter, it's through the referral base as well. But also setting out very clearly with that recruiter, this is what we expect. These are the terms of condition with working with you, and also your at say 3 or 6 months if this person's not working out. Are they going to source someone else for you, or are they going to refund money, whichever way they work? But make sure those terms and conditions of engagement are pretty tight.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that would be the big thing. You did a job description, so awesome.
Absolutely. So that was the first thing. It was a matter of a role that we were trying to create to alleviate some of the work that we were doing in our business. So we had created a role based around what we didn't want to do, and it was laid out very clearly. I mean, I've written position descriptions before, so that wasn't the hard task, but so that would be the first step in the process that we've done right.
To do the position description. Remember when we went back and we did the filming on What to Do when employing for the first time, about sitting down and working out exactly what you've done, the job task you want this person to do. For about 3 months. So we've gone through that. So you've got your position description there, you've sent it off to a recruiter. Now there's 10 per minute, you're not sending it to a recruiter, so what are you going to do in that regard? So a lot of small businesses can't afford $12,000.
No.
So should we talk about this on the point that you're not going to get a recruiter in?
Sure, and what would you do if you place an ad, in Seek or wherever it happens to be, the local newspaper back in the day.
I remember those times.
Yeah, me too. So what would you do if you've done that? You've placed an ad, you've been inundated with candidates, hopefully. What's the process then? How do you find out who to choose as the right person for the role? Okay.
So what you do is you'd go through and look at all the resumes that are coming through, and on your position description, you would have highlighted the areas that are very important to you. So you'd be looking for those people and then just weed out everybody else.
Sure.
But also look for distance, so how far they're actually away from where you're working as well, because you've got to be mindful the M1 here on the Gold Coast can be a nightmare. And you don't want to get someone on board and train them and find that the travel's an issue for them. So consider that as well. Sort of over an hour's travel may be a little bit much for, depending on the level of the role as well. Sure. If it's a low level role, travel's too much. So you'd be going through and looking at that. And then actually phone up and telephone interview people. So when you telephone interview them, actually have a standard set of questions that you ask. So the same questions to everyone, and they'll be around the actual requirements of the role.
Okay.
So what have they done before? Have they been in this situation? Now, you mentioned that the recruitment agency said that they had told you they'd tested.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
So testing is a good thing. It's unfortunate they hadn't in that circumstance. But from the word go, if you're, say, working in Mile, as an example, or Xero if it's an accountancy role, let them know that you're going to be testing from the first time you talk to them. Just to let you know, in the final stage of interview, we are going to be testing for this role. We will actually set a scenario out for you. Are you okay with that?
That's a great idea, rather than leaving it up to the recruitment company as I did, or just accepting what that candidate says as true, which it may not be the case. Anyone can bluff an interview.
That is very true. And I've had a circumstance where someone had got through to third place interview, working on MyOb. We sat there in front of the computer. They actually didn't know anything that they told us they knew. So I've experienced that firsthand as well. Which
can be a nightmare if that's the role that you're looking for and looking to help take some pressure away from you, and then that person can't actually perform that role.
So you've done all your telephone interview and you've got down to, say, 3 or 4 candidates that you'd like to interview, and try and only stick, if you can, to 3 or 4, otherwise you can become overwhelmed with how many people are coming through. But you might have a definitely not pile, or maybe, and let's interview. So you've got people to go back to.
Okay.
Should you find the people you're interviewing not very good.
Right. So what happens next? You found those 3 or 4 people that you want to actually have a face-to-face interview with?
Yes.
What's the next step in the process?
Call them into a face-to-face. Always have 2 of you interviewing as well. So this saves, if someone says, oh, they discriminated against me. So a person can actually claim discrimination from the moment you actually start recruiting for the role.
Oh, wow. That's a scary thought, isn't it? If you're trying to hire into a new role and then you can be discriminated against.
Yeah. So it's always do 2-on-1 interviews. It's just so much better that way. But it's also, you've got 2 people's opinions on that person as well. When you're interviewing, go in with a standard set of questions again, and it's what is important to you as a role, but also bring some cultural things in as well, you know, how your business works, because the person has to fit, not just work-wise, they need to fit into your culture as well.
That's very important, making sure that team culture is right all across the board. Everyone's aligned with your culture of your business.
They are. The questioning that you ask as well, some very situational questions, the hypothetical questions, what would you do in this scenario questions as well. So be very broad across, depending again on your role, what questions you're asking. If you get stuck, that's something that certainly Fresh HR can help with. We have actually got a massive list of questions you could ask, from leadership through to management to teamwork, the whole lot, all the way through, and some web questions as well that just test a person on the spot.
Great idea, particularly depending on the role, I suppose. If it's going to be quite a challenging role where they have to think on their feet, if you can throw in a few questions like that to really test them, that's a great idea.
So don't be afraid to be a little bit challenging, but just be aware, don't be discriminatory. So you can't ask someone, so how many kids have you got to look after? Because if they don't get the role, they could come back and say you discriminated against them due to their carers' responsibilities. So be very careful and mindful of that. So once you've gone through that, you could then test them, because you've already warned them all the way through you're going to be testing. So sit them down and set something up. You know, don't stand over them when they're doing it. Give them the space to be able to do that without being too nervous, and then go back and assess from there. Now you did mention, I picked up there, and this is an interesting one. We're going to be looking at this next one, the probation periods, but you mentioned it's 6 months that you stuck with the person. How many staff did you have across all entities?
At the time we had 4.
Okay, so it's not 6 months, it's actually 12 months. So 12 months for unfair dismissal.
Okay, that's a really great point. I didn't know that at the time, so that would have been really great to know then, because I could have actually let that person go.
You could have managed them out of the business without any recourse to unfair dismissal claims. You do, though, have to be aware of unlawful dismissal and adverse action, but certainly unfair dismissal for a business that size, it would have been 12 months.
Wow.
So knowing that, but we'll go through that next month, or with probation periods anyway. So when a person comes on board, the next thing's going to be monitoring them as well. So we've gone through the recruitment process again. We'll pick that monitoring them up in the probation periods.
And I guess making sure that they are, having those check-ins all the time to make sure that they are performing the role the way that you expect them to.
Another thing as well is to actually do reference checking. So make sure you do the reference checking. A lot of people don't. And yes, there are people out there when you phone up that don't want to give you any more details than the fact that they've actually worked at the company. This is their role that they've actually done within the company as well. But you can read between the lines sometimes. If they're really not willing to tell you anything, you can think, what's up?
Would it be worth asking certain specific questions when you are doing those reference checks? Is there anything that you can ask in particular that would help you to gauge what that employee is actually like on the job?
Well, you'd ask them, how long they've been there, what was their work ethics like? You can ask them that. And a good one is, would you re-employ this person?
Good point, because obviously if you're not going to re-employ the person, then they're probably not a person that you want on your team.
And that's true, and always leave it open. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell me?
Okay.
And always be respectful. Thank you very much for your time. It's the polite thing to do as well in regards to that. But don't be afraid to do that. And if you're not sure of something, phone the candidate back up and say, hey, look, we've just done your reference check. We just want to double check a couple of points before we make a formal offer to you.
Maybe just to clarify those points that the person that you've done the reference check with has mentioned. Yeah, good point.
But certainly after the recruitment, the probation period is the big thing. Which we'll go through next month. And the probation period, everyone kind of holds on, what if, but sometimes letting go is easier than the holding on.
That's right. And I think in a lot of circumstances, it's easier to let someone go sooner rather than later. The longer you leave it, I think it's much more challenging though, because they become part of the team then.
They do,
so,
yes. So the recruitment is hard, and people, can put on a face because you think it's like being an actor. You're on the screen for, say, half an hour. And in half an hour, the business owner needs to decide, is that person right for me and is that person not? So there's a whole pile of different tools that you can use in the recruitment. So standardised questions, very much so. I also have an attitude meter that I go through. What was their handshake like? How did they appear when they turned up? Just a whole pile of different things as well to gauge people against. You could do psychometric testing if you want to as well. Now, the price of those can be quite high, so it's depending on the level of the role again. I certainly can refer people through to someone who does disc profiling. So, that's available as well, but it's looking at everything as a whole, not just one area. There is a debate about going onto social media and looking people on social media as well. So some people do that. It's entirely up to you whether you do, but be very mindful of using social media as an avenue because you can open yourself up to claims of discrimination. Say, for example, if a person, one example I use when I'm lecturing, is if there's a picture of them standing behind someone in a wheelchair as an example, they don't get the role, you've let them know, you've looked on social media, and they go, you're actually discriminated against me based on that I was in a picture with someone with a wheelchair, so you've assumed. So you've got to be so careful. So probably not the best one to use. You could go on LinkedIn, depending on the role, see what the person's on LinkedIn, because don't forget on there you've got the recommendations.
And that's a business profile as well, so it's not so personal.
So you can go on there and have a look what recommendations people have put on there. You would go back and look at people's job history as well. Now it's very interesting, there was a lady did a TED talk and it was about don't dismiss the scrapper. And she talks about the silver spooner and the scrapper. So the silver spooner gets brought up with all the opportunities available for them, yet the scrapper maybe left high school earlier, has had several different jobs. But don't dismiss them because sometimes the scrapper just needs to find that ideal opportunity, but they're actually more determined, more consistent and more driven than someone who's had everything handed to them.
Right.
So don't dismiss the scrapper. It's a very interesting TED talk. What I'll do is I'll actually put the link up to this one as well.
Oh, great, in the bottom of this video.
Yes, go and have a look at it and watch it. It's about 15 minutes long, but it's really worth it.
What about second interviews? Is it something that you would recommend if you've got, say, down to the final, say, two or at least, two or maybe three people that you really can't decide on? Would you run a second set of interviews, and would you do them differently to the first round of interviews?
Yes, I would. I'd go on second set. So you'd be doing the reviewing the resumes, doing a telephone interview, calling in for a first interview. And if you're going to do a second interview, have a different person with you.
Okay.
So then that way there's going to be
different
perspectives with that, and have different sets of questions regarding that. You could even say to them, so if we employed you for this position, what's the first thing you're going to do? Okay. Engage that as well. So it's a whole lot of different questions you can ask.
And what about group interviews?
Depending again on the role, the level of the role, I've certainly done what I've called assessment centres, where I've had 15 people come into a room and you have 4 or 5 people watching them and giving them tasks and seeing how they're working together as a team. Okay. And then you get to lunchtime and you wheedle some out that aren't going to stay on, and then you do a bit more in-depth interviews and one-to-ones until you get down to a final couple. Okay. And then you can go from there. But again, depends on the level of the role. If you were interviewing for maybe a low-level admin position, as an example, you could do couple of people coming through.
Okay.
But just be mindful of not creating too much stress as well, because remember, you're only seeing a snapshot of them.
That's right. So you want to get a good overview, not a stressed overview if they're placed into a situation which they wouldn't likely be placed in under normal work circumstances.
Yeah. So if you are going to do group interviews, let them know prior that's exactly what you're going to do, so they don't turn up here and absolutely panic. Because remember, you've got introverts and extroverts as well, and personalities. So you just need to be mindful of that too.
Okay, awesome. Well, I don't have any other questions for you today. Have you got any other tips or tricks that you wanted to share with everyone today in regards to recruitment?
It's about being authentic, because you're wanting to get someone that's going to fit with you and your business, so be you. Don't try and be something you're not. They're interviewing you as much as you're interviewing them.
And they've probably done their homework on you and stalked you on social media themselves. If like most people these days, they've got access to social media, so they've probably done their homework on you too.
And you don't know whether they've looked.
No, that's true.
But yeah, just be authentic. Don't try and be something you're not. And just help them relax, I guess, is a big thing as well. But like every week, I've got the fact sheet around this, and we've gone through creating a position description. Yep. We've also gone through in that about advertising the position. There's some other tips, and then there's some questions in there as well that you might want to ask during an interview.
Great, that'll be really helpful for everyone, I'm sure, if you're out there looking to recruit someone new. So that's great.
And same as last month, we had the recruitment and selection policy, so we'll put that up. So there's your freebies. And Kath, I'm sure you've got some amazing freebies like you always have as well. Yeah, so this month again we've got our one-page business plan, and also a special for the systems health check for you as well. So that's a freebie this month as well. Excellent. So we'll get those all up from today. But thank you for coming along. But next month we're looking at probation periods. So letting go can be easier than holding on, and you really mustn't underestimate the use of a probation period. So we'll go through that. Next week. So please come and check in. We look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much, Paulette. That was great information. All right. Welcome. We'll see you all again. Have a great day. See ya. Bye.